There is a kind of love nobody warns you about. It is the love you find yourself stuck with after the person you gave it to has already left. Maybe they walked out, or maybe they did not walk out at all. They just stopped showing up at the dinner table, stopped meeting your eye, stopped being in the room even when their body was. Technically still your wife, technically still your husband. And yet the person you actually loved has not been home for years. You did everything you were supposed to do. You held the household together. You paid for the things they wanted. You forgave the things you said you would not forgive. You drove past their job at noon, hoping for a glimpse of them through the glass. You sat in the car. You went home. You made dinner anyway. You set the plate across from yourself anyway. And in the quiet of that house, you have asked the question nobody who is happy in love is asking. How long do I keep doing this? If you have lived in some version of that kitchen, there is a book of the Bible written for you. It is one of the shortest in the Old Testament. Almost nobody preaches on it. Almost nobody reads it twice. The book is called Hosea, and it is not a sermon about adultery. It is the most honest thing the Bible has ever said about what it feels like to be the one who keeps loving the person who keeps leaving. The book opens in the 8th century before Christ. The northern kingdom of Israel is enjoying one of the best decades it has ever had. Jeroboam II is on the throne. The borders are wide. The economy is strong. The trade routes are open. By any external measure, things are going extraordinarily well. Underneath all of it, the covenant is rotting. The people have not abandoned the worship of the Lord. They have not torn down the temple. They have not openly defected.
What they have done is syncretism. They have kept the Yahweh worship because it is tradition, because it is heritage, because it is what their grandfather did. And they have added the worship of Baal on the side, on the high places, in the groves outside the village. Baal is the god of rain. Baal is the god of fertility. They cannot afford to lose the harvest. They are covering their bases. It is so respectable. Nobody is leaving the marriage. Everybody is just quietly sleeping with somebody else as well. The priests are complicit. The king is complicit. The prophets are silent. Into that room, into that exact arrangement, God speaks to a man named Hosea. Go, take to yourself a wife of whoredom, and have children of whoredom. For the land commits great whoredom by forsaking the Lord. The Hebrew is Isha Zenunim, a woman of prostitution, a woman whose unfaithfulness is already part of her history, or will be very soon.
God is telling Hosea to enter a marriage where the betrayal is built into the premise, not as a punishment for Hosea, as a picture. Because what God is about to say to Israel through the rest of this book, the grief, the rage, the love that will not lie down, he wants to come from a man who has felt it, not a theologian giving a lecture, a man who knows what it is to love someone who leaves. So Hosea marries Gomer, and the children begin to arrive. In the ancient world, names were not labels. Names were identity statements. A child's name said what the parents believed about who that child was, about the world the child had been born into, about what was coming next. And the names of Hosea's 3 children are not chosen by Hosea. They are chosen by God. And they read, in order, like the entries in a court record nobody wanted to write. The first son is born. God says, "Call him Jezreel." Jezreel is the name of a valley. It is the valley where the king Jehu had slaughtered the house of Ahab, a bloodbath that founded a dynasty. The name means judgment is coming. The blood spilled here will be repaid. The birth of a son should be the most joyful event a family knows, and the son is named after a massacre. The second child is born, a daughter. God says, "Call her Lo Ruhamah." Lo means not. Ruhamah comes from the Hebrew root racham, and this is one of the most intimate words in the entire Old Testament. Racham means deep compassion, tender mercy, the bending down love of a mother for the child still inside her. It is the same root as the Hebrew word for womb. When the Old Testament talks about God's mercy, it almost always means this word, the love that comes from inside the body, the love that goes all the way to the bone. And the name of this baby girl is not shown that love. The God whose most characteristic emotion toward his people is racham, womb love, bending down compassion, is saying through the name of a baby that he is withholding it. Not because the mercy ran out, because they refused it long enough that the refusal has finally become the condition. Then the third child, a son. God says, "Call him Lo Ami." Lo Ami, not my people. Now you have to feel this one, because 400 years earlier at the burning bush, God had said something to Moses that became the defining sentence of the entire Hebrew identity. "I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God." Exodus 6:7. The covenant formula, the line that everyone in Israel could recite from memory, the center of who they were. And here, through the name of a child, God is reversing it. You are not my people. I am not your God. 3 children, 3 names. The story of a marriage falling apart, told as a birth announcement. And then, immediately, in the very next verse, something turns. "Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And in the place where it was said to them, 'You are not my people,' it shall be said to them, 'Children of the living God.'" The judgment is named, and the restoration is named in the next breath. Lo Ami becomes Ami, my people. Lo Ruhamah becomes Ruhamah, shown compassion. It is as if God cannot say the words, "not my people," without saying the words, "children of the living God," immediately after. As if the breaking and the mending live so close together in his chest that they come out in the same sentence. This is the emotional structure of the whole book. There is judgment. The judgment is real. And underneath the judgment, always pressing up through it, always refusing to be the last word, is the love that will not let go. Chapter 2 lays out the case in the language of a betrayed husband. "Plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband." Hosea 2:2. He is talking about Israel. He is talking about the nation. But he is speaking in the vocabulary of a man whose wife has been with other men, and is using the words a husband uses, and there is no way to read it as anything else. She has taken her bread, she has taken her water, she has taken her wool and her oil,
and she has given the credit for it to other lovers. She did not know that it was I who gave her the grain, the wine, and the oil, and who lavished on her silver and gold, which they used for Baal. Hosea 2:8. Read that line again, slowly, because this is the specific grief of the chapter, and it is not generic. He fed her, he clothed her, he provided the silver.
He provided the gold, and she took the silver he had given her and used it to make idols of the lovers she was leaving him for. The provision of his love became the instrument of her departure. This is the particular pain in chapter 2. The pain of seeing the person you loved at a shrine, wearing a necklace you bought them, calling somebody else their provider. The grief that is sharper than ordinary heartbreak, because it is the grief of betrayal made possible by your own generosity. And then comes verse 14. Therefore, behold, I will allure her, and bring her into the wilderness, and speak tenderly to her. Hosea 2:14. You have to feel the therefore, because the therefore in the Bible always points backward to what just came before. And what just came before was the whole indictment. She used my silver to worship her lovers. She walked away from me with the things I gave her. Therefore, I am going to pursue her. Not, therefore, I will divorce her. Not, therefore, she will get exactly what she chose. Not, therefore, I am finally going to be done. Therefore, I will go and bring her back. Speak tenderly in the Hebrew is the phrase al-libah, literally, speak to her heart. It is the same phrase used in Ruth chapter 2 when Boaz comforts Ruth. The same phrase in Isaiah 40, speak comfort to Jerusalem, speak to her heart. It is not the voice of a courtroom. It is the voice of a man at 3 a.m, sitting at the edge of the bed of a woman who has wept until she has no words left, saying things quiet enough that nobody else in the house could hear them if they tried. And he is going to take her into the wilderness to do it. In the Bible, the wilderness is not a punishment. The wilderness is where intimacy was originally formed. The 40 years in the desert were the years when Israel was alone with God before the land, before the temples, before the kings, before any of the systems. Just the people and the cloud and the fire and the daily bread that came from nowhere. God is not threatening Israel with the desert. He is taking her back to where it was just the two of them, where the noise of the high places and the prosperity and the trading routes and the social position falls away. And in that place, he is going to say the thing he could not say while the bells were ringing and the harvest was coming in. He is going to speak to her heart. And then, verse 15, I will give her her vineyards and make the valley of Achor a door of hope. Hosea 2:15. Achor in Hebrew means trouble. The valley of Achor is a real place. It is the spot where Achan sinned in the book of Joshua and was put to death. It was, in the memory of Israel, the geographic location of the worst thing that ever happened, the place of consequence. And God says, I am going to make your valley of trouble a door of hope. Not, I will remove your trouble and replace it with good things. The trouble itself becomes the threshold. The valley you wish had never happened becomes the way through. There is somebody listening to this who needs that sentence written down on the inside of their eyelids. The valley of your trouble is going to be the door. Chapter 3 is the most personal chapter in the book. Gomer has left. She has gone back to her lovers. She has ended up somewhere in a place she did not think she would end up. The text does not give us the details, but it tells us what has happened to her because of what Hosea has to do to get her back.
And the Lord said to me, Go again, love a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, even as the Lord loves the children of Israel. Hosea 3:1. Go again, not go and see if she is sorry, not go and check whether she has earned a second chance, not go and find out if she has decided she wants to come back. Go and love her. The posture is determined by what Hosea decides, not by what Gomer has done. And Hosea goes. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and a homer and a lethek of barley. Hosea 3:2. He bought her. Read that again. Hosea's wife, the mother of his 3 children, has ended up in a position where she can be purchased. The text does not spell out the details. Most likely she has fallen into slavery or into the kind of debt bondage that operated at the bottom of the ancient Near Eastern world. 15 shekels and a few sacks of grain was a slave market price, the price of a person in distress. She has reached the furthest possible distance from their home and their marriage, and Hosea goes to find her in the slave market with what he has. Not a triumphant rescue, not a hero's payment. 15 shekels and barley, what he could put together. He pays it. He takes her hand. He walks her home. And then he says one of the most tender sentences in the Bible. You must dwell as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore or belong to another man. So will I also be to you. So will I also be to you. He is not just listing terms. He is making a promise alongside the terms. You are going to be faithful to me, and I am going to be faithful to you. We are going to start again from here. This is what God says he is doing with Israel. This is the picture Hosea has been asked to live. In the middle of the book, chapter 6, verse 6, comes a single sentence that Jesus will end up quoting twice in his own ministry.
For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. Hosea 6:6. The word translated steadfast love in your Bible is the Hebrew hesed. Hesed, the hardest word in the Old Testament to translate into English. It is covenant love. It is loyal love. It is the love a husband owes a wife, and a wife owes a husband, and a father owes a son. It is love that is built into a relationship by oath, not maintained by feeling. It is the love that stays after the feeling fades, and after the betrayal lands, and after the easy reasons to leave have piled up to the ceiling. The religious machinery of Israel was still running. The sacrifices were still being made. The feasts were still being kept. The forms were intact. And God says, that is not what I want. I want chesed. I want the knowing of who I am. I want the relationship the ritual was always pointing toward.
When the Pharisees criticized Jesus for eating with tax collectors and sinners, Jesus stops and tells them, Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Matthew 9:13. When they criticize his disciples for picking grain on the Sabbath, he stops and tells them again, "If you had known what these words mean, 'I desire mercy and not sacrifice,' you would not have condemned the guiltless." Matthew 12:7. Twice, in two different controversies, Jesus sends the Pharisees back to Hosea, back to the prophet who lived the grief of God in his own household, back to the man who knows what God actually wants. Not your sacrifice, your relationship. Not your maintained forms, you. Then comes chapter 11. And this is the chapter that is unlike almost anything else in the Old Testament, because God stops speaking as a king. He stops speaking as a husband. He starts speaking as a parent. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. Hosea 11:1. He is going back to the very beginning, before the land, before the monarchy, before any of the betrayals, to the moment when this relationship was new, when it was a child called out of slavery by a father who loved it. And then he says something almost impossible to read out loud without stopping. "It was I who taught Ephraim to walk. I took them up by their arms." Hosea 11:3. Not I watched from a distance. Not I was nearby when they took their first steps. I took their arms. The stumbling, falling down, getting back up process of a child learning to walk for the first time. I held you through it. I bent at the waist for hours. My back hurt from how long I bent. I was the one who was there. But they did not know that I healed them. They did not know it was me. Read that sentence twice.
To hold someone through something, to give them the steadiness that lets them find their feet, and to have them grow up not knowing whose hands were holding them. Not ingratitude exactly, just they looked at their own legs and assumed they had gotten there themselves. I led them with cords of kindness, with the bands of love, and I became to them as one who eases the yoke on their jaws, and I bent down to them and fed them. Hosea 11:4. I bent down to them and fed them. The God who inhabits eternity, the God before whom the seraphim hide their faces, the God who said to Moses, "No one can see my face and live," bending down to feed a small child a piece of bread. The posture of God toward his people is always downward, always toward, always close. It is the same God who, 8 centuries later, takes the form of a servant in John 13 and washes the feet of the men who are about to abandon him. The same God who picks up the children when his disciples try to wave them away. He always bends down. And then comes verse 8, and the camera comes in close, and God starts asking himself the question out loud. How can I give you up, O Ephraim? How can I hand you over, O Israel? How can I make you like Admah? How can I treat you like Zeboim? Hosea 11:8. Admah and Zeboim were the cities destroyed alongside Sodom and Gomorrah. Total destruction. Final end. And God is asking,
out loud, in the Bible, the way a parent asks themselves at the kitchen sink at midnight, "How can I do this?" My heart recoils within me. My compassion grows warm and tender. The Hebrew word for recoils is hafak, to overturn. It is the same word used for the overturning of Sodom. God's heart, inside himself, is being overturned. The compassion that the names of Hosea's children said would be withheld, the racham, the womb love, is being aroused anyway, in spite of everything, in spite of the case in chapter 2, in spite of the years of walking away. The "how can I give you up" keeps breaking through. And then comes verse 9, and it is the most important line in the chapter, and possibly the most important line in the whole book. "I will not execute my burning anger. I will not again destroy Ephraim, for I am God and not a man, the Holy One in your midst. For I am God and not a man." Everything before this in chapter 11, the "I taught you to walk," the "I bent down to feed you," the "how can I give you up," has been the language of a human parent, emotionally intelligible, familiar. And then God says, "But I am not a man." Human love, betrayed and exhausted enough, eventually stops. Eventually, the "how can I give you up" gets answered. Eventually, the love runs out. Mine does not. My "how can I give you up" is not sentiment I will eventually get over. It is who I am. The book ends in chapter 14 with the word that runs through every prophet who has ever written. "Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God." Hosea 14:1. The Hebrew is shuv, teshuvah. Turn around, come back, walk the other direction. And then the instruction is so simple it almost embarrasses you. Take with you words and return to the Lord. Say to him, "Take away all iniquity, accept what is good, and we will pay with bulls the vows of our lips." Hosea 14:2. Take words with you, not bring the sacrifice first, not bring the proof of your repentance, not come back with the receipts. Take words, honest words, the words you have not been able to say out loud for years, the words you finally have to admit to yourself in the car on the way home, the words you have been afraid to put in your own mouth because once they were spoken aloud, you could not unspeak them. Bring those. And the response from God comes in verse 4, and the word he uses is nedavah. It means free will offering, voluntary, spontaneous. The kind of offering brought to God not because it was required, but because the worshiper wanted to. I will heal their apostasy. I will love them freely, for my anger has turned from them. Hosea 14:4. I will love them freely. Not because the account has finally been settled and the love is now owed, because that is what I decided. And then, before the book closes, God gives one more image. After the betrayal of chapter 2, after the rescue of chapter 3, after the grieving parent of chapter 11, after the return of chapter 14. He says, I will be like the dew to Israel. Hosea 14:5. The dew. In a country of hot summers and almost no rain, the dew was life, the moisture that kept things alive between the rains. Silent, overnight, arriving without announcement, there in the morning before anyone was awake to thank it. It is the last image of God in the book of Hosea. Not the thunder of Sinai, not the fire on the mountain,
not the husband shouting at the gate, not the parent at the kitchen sink. The dew, the quiet, faithful, necessary thing that comes in the night while you are sleeping and is already on the grass before you knew you needed it. Hosea is not primarily a book of judgment. It is a book of love that has been hurt. And God does not send the message through a speech or a vision or a set of laws. He sends it through a marriage, through a man who loves a woman who keeps leaving, who goes to find her in the slave market, who buys her back with 15 shekels and barley, who brings her home and says, "We are going to start again." His response to betrayal is the response of a husband who will not stop going to find his wife, who lures her into the wilderness and speaks to her heart, who turns the valley of her trouble into a door of hope, who asks out loud, "How can I give you up?" and answers his own question with, "I am God and not a man." He is asking for one thing, not the burnt offering.
I desire hesed and not sacrifice. Hosea 6:6. The relationship behind the ritual, the actual knowing of Him. There is someone listening to this who has been the one walking away, or has been the one watching someone walk away, or both. You may have spent years assuming that the door is closed by now, that after this many times, after this much silence, after this many years of using the gifts as the means of departure, the marriage has to be over. That God is the kind of person who eventually files the paperwork. The book of Hosea is the answer to that assumption. He is not. He is still on the road in the morning, with 15 shekels and a bag of barley, and the patience of someone who does not run out of love when human love would.
He is not a man, and he is asking you in the only voice he uses with people who have been hurt as long as you have been hurt, the voice that speaks to your heart, not to the courtroom, to take words with you and come back, not the sacrifice first, not the receipts, only the words. He has already gone to the slave market. He has already paid. He is already in the doorway. The dew is already on the grass. So, if any of this has met you tonight, if you have been carrying the kind of love that nobody warns you about, the kind that keeps loving the person who keeps leaving, or the kind that is afraid to come home because you are the one who left, leave a like so this video reaches the next person sitting in the same kind of kitchen at the same kind of late hour, wondering if they are still allowed back. And subscribe for more videos that walk slowly through what Scripture is actually saying when nobody is rushing you past it. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, someone who has been the spouse left behind, someone who has been the prodigal in the slave market, someone who left a marriage years ago and still cannot forgive themselves, someone who has been faithful so long they have stopped believing they are still loved, share this with them. they may need to know who has been waiting on the road. That the husband in Hosea is not a metaphor. That the dew is already in the morning. That the door of the slave market has already been paid for. That God is not a man, and that he has been bending down toward them this whole time, the same way he has been bending down toward you.